Well, welcome to the latest edition of Big Bears podcast. Thanks to Cash Converters. I am Ollie Peterson and I am delighted with who we've got on the show today because we have been asking you now for a number of weeks to provide your questions because we want to get those answered from the club, and we will do that over the coming weeks and months here on the Big Bears podcast. So make sure you keep that feedback coming through and we will have bite back at the end of this podcast. But without any further ado, it is the Big Bear himself. He named the podcast. He is your coach. He is our coach. He is Mal Meninga. Great to see you, Mal.
Yeah, thanks, Ollie. So it's fantastic. I'll be able to ask you questions today. The bite back.
You can indeed. Why not? But how's that, right? You sat here on the couch with me, only a few weeks ago. You said, let's call it Big Bears podcast. And the Big Bears community went with you, Big Mal.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting take on it, just quietly, So I'm trying to get littler, just quietly. I don't want to get bigger. So, I understand that, we just throw things out. You have a bit of fun, and look what happens. It sticks.
Absolutely.
So, but I'm ecstatic that it's called Big Bear.
And since we have obviously had our last chat here on the podcast anyway, Mal, we're well and truly into the thick of the season. And how good is it? You can smell it in the air that footy is back. And it's just better when we're playing rugby league.
Yeah. Well, it has been exciting. Obviously started Vegas, as you know. What a wonderful experience that was. Again, a great way for our game to launch its season. The Mighty Dragons were over there as well. So, you would have been nice and happy. And I think you actually went over there to watch them. So I'm not quite sure what you got up to, of course. But we don't want to know, just quietly. It's been there's new rules. There's new rules so that, the old six again, we're between the 20-metre and the 40-metre line. So it's actually quickened the game up again, so it's all designed around their fans. Well, the teams will adapt to it. They weren't quite prepared. Didn't quite understand because there's another 40 more meters now of quicker footy and more momentum. So defenses are probably struggling a bit. But as everyone who watches our game would see, defenses are starting to adapt now. They're starting to adapt. The scorelines are starting to come down a bit closer and things like that. So. The Penrith Panthers, as we've seen, defensively been outstanding and probably maybe prepared best, for the new rules. And they're obviously leading the comp at the moment. They look like, giant killers at the moment, with as far as the game is concerned. But the game is quicker, a lot more entertaining, and I've got no doubts, clubs and teams will adapt to the new rules.
Yeah, well, it's going to be so exciting. I mean, you can feel it now. This time next year, we're here, we're playing, and those fast new rules will be on display at HBF Park here in Perth. You can't believe it. We'll blink and we'll be playing footy.
Yeah, it's not a marathon; it's a sprint. For us, and we're really working, really hard behind the scenes. Developing our top squad. Obviously, there's a lot more that you have to adjust to with particularly with our recruitment. But the commercial side of things are going fantastic. We had it all in just the other day, and just to hear a lot of some of the great initiatives that the commercial team and the administrative team have been implementing at the moment, just gives you great confidence in where we're going. It lifts morale, and we just keep plugging away. So every day we're having small wins, which is fantastic. And like you said, we've only got 6 months before we actually got to hit the field training.
Yeah.
Ollie. So, it's not only like next year we start the competition, early March. Our preparation, starts early November as well. So, we're not that far away. We're recruitment wise, we have to have 24. So just for our fans and supporters to understand, we need to have 24 to start the year on November 1st, and we're only about 5 or 6 away from that already. Okay. So we're tracking really well.
Yeah, so publicly 16 have been announced. The last time Sharpie told us 18 are on the books, so a few more signatures, a few more announcements obviously coming, as we know, Mal. And no doubt in the player market, players pop out that you may not have anticipated because clubs have signed other players. And the example was obviously used by Sharpie a few weeks ago, that you look at the recruitment, for example, at South Sydney, just using them, hypothetically for a moment. Signing people like David Fafita means that maybe somebody else pops out at the other end. Payne Haas obviously coming to the Rabbitohs.
Coming to the club, yeah.
Yeah, they might all of a sudden have somebody available who wasn't going to be available on the radar of clubs like the Bears.
Yeah, exactly. And, some of the players are really good examples of that. The Melbourne Storm, we've got a couple of players come, Nick Meaney and Tyron Wishart coming out of there. They've obviously got to obviously keep players at their clubs like Storm and the Penrith Panthers. We've got a couple of players out of Cronulla as well.
Mm.
That's all caused by what Sharpie said the other week, is that we'll have South the Rabbitohs as an example. We're talking to a couple of Rabbitohs players that we feel is going to be really important for our team. We're kind of hoping that our sell has been really, really good, but we've just got to be patient. Like, we're around the 18, 19 at the moment.
Yep.
We've just got to be patient around the next couple of signings. So like I said before, we need 24 to start the year.
Yep.
And we want to have money still in our cap to make sure that if a big fish or a couple of big fish do come onto the market, that we're ready to go, basically. So there's a bit of juggling to be done there. Obviously a lot of communication between us and the managers and the clubs that the players are at as well. So it's exciting stuff. But it's difficult not to go buy players.
Yeah.
The difficult thing is to listen. We just got to just relax a little bit. Give ourselves a bit of time and just see where the market falls. And I think that's where we are at the moment.
All right, good to know. And that's what we wanted to focus on today, Mal. And we will, over coming episodes of the Big Bears podcast, looking in a little more depth about the players. And today we wanted to focus on our international players, those Super League players who are going to be making their debut in the National Rugby League here with the Perth Bears next year. And, of course, you've got a lot of love, obviously, for the Leeds Rhinos, Mal, because Harry Newman was one of the first players signed to the Perth Bears. Of course, he's 26, can play centre or wing, has represented England, and there's obviously a lot to like about Harry.
Well, I've had an eye on Harry for quite a long time, since he's about 18, because obviously I've been involved with the Raiders, and then I was involved with the Titans as well recently. And Harry, as a young fellow, was an excellent prospect, and we tried to court him way back. So, and in that time, he's ebbed and flowed. He had a few injuries, but what he is, he's an international player, and he wants to prove himself. So all the English, when we talk about the English competition, some people don't like the competition. I particularly do. I like the fact that they play a different style of rugby league to what we do. They're a lot more skill in their game, in my opinion. They're trying to work their way up towards the standards and quality of the NRL, but they play attractive game. I like the way they use the ball, and their skill sets. I just find that if you can corral an English player that's got good skill, good leg speed, got a good attitude to their training, which all the Leeds boys have. They're under Brad Arthur. That's a big plus in my mind, because they're used to the standards that an Aussie coach demands, that accountability in their training. I've talked to the players about that, and they're actually responding to that. They quite like it. They quite like the accountability of it all. So I think if you get a big, skillful, quick player, we build their body a bit better, their body frame a bit better, and then we get them fitter. I think they'll be outstanding recruits. And I like the Pommy players, and I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it happen at the Raiders and how successful that's been. How they utilise some of the English players to come over and play, and they've got about 3 at the moment in the Raiders, and they all excel. They're all quality players. They're all playing for their country, and that's what we've got. We've got the same sort of quality player. And the thing I like about it, they want to come over, they want to be a Perth Bear, they want to prove themselves in our competition. And I love that. And I love that. And Harry's such a competitive bugger. If we watch him play, every game he competes. Every game he competes. James McDonald, he competes every game. And we got Big Mick Odletsky, so he's this big unit. He's 6'4", 109 odd kilo, but he's quick over the ground, and he's a starter. He's got plenty of experience, and he's played for England. So, and they're all mates, because that's the other thing about us, forming a club, having those connections, and particularly coming from England, having mates come together, they'll settle quicker with their families and things like that, and obviously then they'll hopefully adjust to the Perth conditions.
Yeah, you mentioned Mick. I mean, what a story. A bloke born in Poland and then
Yeah.
migrates to England at the age of 15 and plays rugby league for England. And now he's about to become a pioneer and move here as a Perth Bear. Like, what a story, Mal.
It is a story. I mean, he didn't even know about rugby league, he come from Poland, so, but mum and dad are athletes. I think mum and dad are Olympians, so he comes from good stock.
Yes.
He's a beast. He's a huge human being. He played his back playing. He had got some rib cartilage injuries just recently. That's why he didn't play over in Vegas, but he's back playing at the moment and excelling. He's a great player. He's 27 years of age.
Yeah.
We signed him to a 3-year contract. We're going to get the best out of Big Mick, So, but the other really important part, as I keep saying all the time, they actually want to come play for us. They actually want to come down and they want to be part of the Perth Bears trailblazing foundation, team. So, yeah, I think we've got 3 quality people, really important, but 3 quality players who've got enormous upside to them, and they'll come here and want to prove themselves.
Yeah, absolutely they will. And I just love the passion and the enthusiasm that you speak about the players. There's something really unique, Mal, that is being touched on through the podcast in every single episode around that culture, again, that I know you and I have spoken about, but there's just such a good feeling, Mal. And I know I've drunk the Kool-Aid, but it's just, it's inspiring.
Oh, mate, I appreciate that. It is so, but it is about that, It's not about selling Perth. We've talked about this.
Yeah.
So many times, it's such a livable place. It's such a good quality place to bring up your kids. It's great schooling, facilities and the infrastructure of Perth and WA is excellent. We're the only rugby league team in town. We're part of the National Rugby League competition, and culture is really important. It's not about their playing ability. It's about why they're coming to Perth. Because that's a really important question, and it's a really important question to answer by them. So when they do answer that question, they come for all the right reasons, Ollie. They want to participate. They want to be trailblazers. They want to come over and prove themselves. Every player we've recruited so far has played NRL.
Yeah,
and there's so much upside to their game. So they're going to be better players. But it's more about coming to Perth and living in Perth, mixing in the community. Being trailblazers. Being great advocates for our great game of rugby league, getting in the community and promoting our great game.
Yeah.
So that's the important ingredients about all. And we do that through a set of connected values and pillars that we really want to hang our hat on. And that's the way we want to live. That's the way we want to breathe. That's the way we want to play.
Well, I've heard you publicly as well indicate that, you're not just here to make up the numbers, Mal, that, you want to challenge. You want to become the first team to enter the NRL in its first season to win the premiership. That's a pretty big ambition.
No, well, you got to have an ambition, So imagine if I'm going talking to the players and I'm saying, we'll go there, we'll be competitive, we'll finish, we'll probably finish outside the 8, but at least we have a good year. That's not the way you talk to players.
No,
that's not the way you think about competitive sport or anything in life. You got to have a goal in life. You got to be focused on what are those realistic goals that you want to set yourself. And I believe that the roster we're building have got the capabilities of being really successful. If you don't have a goal, if you want to win the competition, no team goes into each year. And I don't want to bring this up, but the Dragons is an example.
Yeah.
They're coming last on the ladder at the moment. However, they come into the season wanting to win the competition and believe in that. So it's really important that you have that mindset.
Yeah.
And with that mindset, you drive that. You hold everyone to account. If they believe in everything that you're doing, that's the other important part. But you got to have a focus on. You don't say, "I'm going to want to be top 4." I want to win the damn thing. That's who I am, and hopefully that's what all the players will be.
Well, Sharpie was asked at a press conference the other day, he's signing a marquee. Have you got a marquee player? His response was, every player is a marquee. And I like that approach, Mal, that every single player that decides that they want to commit to the Perth Bears, you're viewing them all the same and that they're all going to have the same input.
That's right, exactly right. Initially, right from the start, and every player has got the potential to be a marquee. But what is a marquee? That's the question I keep on asking. Now, the media talk about, you got to have a marquee player. Well, what's a marquee? It's driven in my way. It's driven by money, but no, It shouldn't be driven by money. It should be driven by effort and the quality of the person, the quality of their game. Do they make a difference in a game? When we're under the pump, there's momentum against us, which is really important in the modern game. How do you react to all that? How do you make decisions? How do you behave? A marquee player is not only on the footy field, but it's what they do in the community. That's what I consider a marquee. That's what I consider an NRL player. And marquee in a lot of people's minds is just based on money.
Yeah.
But it's good to be rewarded for your potential and for your playing ability, and that's the money component of it all. But it's your contribution that's really important. That's what wins your comps. The money doesn't win your comps. What wins your comps is the character and the perseverance and how much you want to devote to it. The sacrifices you make. How happy you are. How happy your family is. How happy are you? You're in the community. How well do you get looked after? How much you cared. How much. All those sort of little attributes are so important to a successful footy team. It's not the money.
Yeah, and I'm sure plenty of players, and there's been lots linked and lots of, big names have been linked. But I'm sure, Mal, as you said before, you got to look after your salary cap. You could go and break the bank and pay somebody a hell of a lot of money to get them over here, but then you're struggling to fill the rest of your roster. So you're going about it the Perth Bears way.
Yeah, it's a silly strategy to have, So I think 27 players was the average last year that every club used. So 27 players. So you got 30 and you got 6 development players, so that's 36. So I think the Dragons were the worst. They had about 30. They had to use 33 players last year. So it's silly to say, listen, we're just going to top it out, the top 17 we're going to pay a shitload of money to and break the bank balance, break your cap. So you're better off, in my mind, particularly with our strategy around making sure that we give kids opportunities to particularly in WA to be one of the first players locally that plays for the Perth Bears. That's going to take, honestly, 3 to 5 years.
Yep.
And I think we're being very optimistic in that area, that space as well. But say it's 5 years, Ollie. So time we get our first player through locally in 5 years' time.
Yep.
So we've got to make sure we have stability in our roster so we can cater for that young kid to come into our top 30 after 5 years. And so that's why we've gone that theory around, a 22-year-old who's all played first grade up to, a Nick Meaney, 29 is an example. When he comes to, actually gives us some stability and shared experience over a longer period of time. That 5-year period, so that we can have those young kids start to come through, and it's like succession plan, having sustainability in your roster.
Yeah, really important.
It really is. That's the strategy.
I like the strategy, and let's go to bite back now, Mal, because plenty of people have been wanting to ask questions, and I got a few to fire at you now, and it's a good way to start with that one because Rick says, are the Bears looking to recruit and retain any local talents?
Yeah, so we want to start an academy sooner rather than later. Really important for us. We've got to prove that we're invested in the community, and I believe that's going to happen. But it's not only just those young fellas giving them optimism and hope. It's coming in and working with NRLWA and upskilling everyone. So from our club competitions to the school competitions, all that participation, we've got to have a presence. We've got to try to upskill everyone that wants to be involved in a high performance environment. So it's not only just players, it's staff and development staff and coaches and strength and conditioning and trainers and admin. I think that's really important part of the whole community getting better, growing together. So that all of a sudden that every kid is coached by someone that understands how to coach the Perth Bears way. Yeah. Example. So that when they come through and they start to come into our development programs and our academy programs, our supplement, what they call development lists, or come and be part of our partnerships and affiliations with North Sydney and the Brisbane Tigers. Upskill our local competition so it becomes even more competitive competition, so we can place kids back into those clubs it's like it's creating this ecosystem
Yeah.
that's high performance, but everyone contributes to that, whether it's club land locally, schools, whatever, so we've just got to work collectively together to make sure that we get all that.
Yeah, and Community WA Rugby League saying as well, registrations are up for 2026, so it's a wonderful start. Now, Nio wants to know, what will the mentality be of the Bears going into round one next season, Mal?
Well, I hope it's at home.
What do you want, HBF Park
colours.
or Optus?
Well, I love HBF Park. I've said it numerous times. I just got an aura about it, and having that full of black and red would be tremendous. Us doing that. But I understand the commercial advantage of going to Optus as well, and filling that out would be tremendous, wouldn't it?
Oh,
as well,
yeah.
Getting that atmosphere, and as long as it's all red and black. Ollie, that's all I worry about.
You want to create, don't you, Mal, that the fact that visiting teams don't want to come to the Bear Pit, that they are scared about entering the Bear Pit.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So well, I don't know what the terminology, but it's not a fear, but they're dreading the opportunity to come over to WA, and we're out there growling at them, mate. All our fans are there growling. They've got the claws up, and we're just going to give it to you.
I like that. That's brilliant. Alex wants to know, who do you have in mind to play number 9? Are we going to sign an out-and-out number 9, or is your plan at the moment to play Tyron Wishart?
Tyron Wishart, he's a 9.
Okay.
He played all his junior footy under 9. He's got great versatility. Tyron said to me when I was talking to him, I said, because we talked about it, I want a 9, and I know he can play 9. He's played under the best 9 in the game, so he just can't get an opportunity. He said to me, Mal, I can play 7 and 6. I said, I don't want you to play 7 and 6. I want you to play 9. You're 9. You're one of the most important players in our footy team because you touch the ball more than anyone else.
Yeah.
We'll find 7 and 6, if we need to, So we'll make sure that we do that. But Tyron Wishart is our starting 9, and I'm emphatic on that. I promised him that, and that's what he'll do.
All right. Maddie says, how long do you think it'll be before the Bears play finals? And Luke saying, where will we finish on the ladder after our first year?
Well, we've already talked about that already.
Thought. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not gonna put any conditions on where we finish. Year 1, we want to win it. So that's what we're concentrating on. That's the mindset we'll have. So all our off season, we all come together. That's what we were talking about. History says we can't do it, but who knows? 20 years time, history will be saying you can do it.
Steed, on what we touched on before, grassroots development, what does that look like for the newest NRL team? You mentioned the pathways. You mentioned probably 5 years before we see a Perth rugby league player make their debut.
That's what we think. You don't know. You can't predict. You can't predict those sort of things, but we're sort of planning for that, to make sure that we have things in place. But it's around upskilling the whole community. Honestly, that's what I keep on talking about, is that everyone becomes a high performance environment for us, so that everyone's sort of pitched towards. It's got the triangle, and we've got an apex where the apex, but the whole community's got to be educated. The whole community has got to engage with, and we want to engage the whole community so that, their skill sets, their kids that are coming through at under 6s or whatever, get the best coaching. And then that just systematically happens right up the food chain, up the age groups into your local first grade teams. It's really important.
Abby wants to know how you're going to make sure the players understand the deep loyalty and the history to the North Sydney Bears while embracing the new chapter.
Well, I've already talked about history already, so the players will get a history lesson in the North Sydney Bears. They'll understand their roots, when it all started way back in 1908, and when the Bear became a brand, a logo, know that story, understand the reasons why I guess it's folded. I think that's really important. Was been brought out of hibernation again, but not only that, it's the history of WA Rugby League, really important. I think then part of that's the Western Reds, so understanding both sides. But it even goes deeper than that, Ollie. It's actually understanding WA and its roots. how did WA start off, and
Yeah.
who discovered Perth, and all those particular storylines. I think it's really important if we're going to engage with the community, we're going to live in the WA community. We need to understand who WA people are.
Yeah. That's really good. I love the approach. This is probably my favourite question of the day, Mal. It comes from Braith, and he says, how can I best impress my coach because I'm struggling with my tackling?
Well, let's go back to what I said before. We want to provide and help NRLWA around all their programs. So there's tackle ready programs.
Yeah.
Already that they implement. So we want to help improve all that, to be honest with you. So tackling's hard, particularly as a kid. So it takes a bit of courage, at times to get your body in front of a bigger fella, and try and get your head in the right position, wrap your arms around his legs, and try to bring him down. It all comes with confidence and practice, and hopefully they're being taught the tackle ready programs that allows you to tackle with a lot of safety.
All right, that's a really good tip, Braith. Let us know how you're working on your tackling, because Mal and I are very keen to follow that one up with you. And just finally, Mal, in Bite Back today, we've got a rumour, right? I can't tell you who this has come from because I've been sworn to secrecy,
okay.
But the rumour is that you might be putting on the mascot suit and running out at halftime at the double header here in Perth.
Oh, had that rumour get out, seriously. I'm pretty keen on it, just quietly.
I can't.
I think I'll fill out that suit pretty well too, just quietly, because I asked the question the other day. Well, how big is it? He said it's about 6'2", and it's got plenty of belly room. So you never know, mate.
It was submitted.
Me or you, just quietly.
Well, that's true, but it was submitted by a bloke called Little Bear. Do you know who Little Bear is?
Yeah, well, he's that little cub that's going to run out in the little bear suit as well, beside me, the little bear.
All right, very good. Hey, Mal, it's so good to have you on the Big Bears podcast. It's so good to talk to the coach. It's so good to have you back in Perth, obviously, for the double header. It's awesome to have that chat around the recruitment today of those Leeds footballers and the English contingent, which is just going to go so well here at the Bears. And look, we'll go through some players with you over the coming weeks and months. It's just wonderful, and it's just really, once again, inspiring to have the Bears.
Hey, what about the technology, Ollie? So I'm actually over here, with talking to player managers and players and stuff, trying to attract them to come to Perth. What about the technology? It's fantastic.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
How good is it?
It's absolutely outstanding.
Room in a hotel in Sydney. How nice.
Did you make your bed? Is a bed made? You made that this morning, Mel?
We don't have to in here in a hotel room. Only when I'm home, mate. Only when I'm home.
Very good.
That's the first thing you do. It's around discipline. First thing I do every morning, make my bed.
Is that right?
Yep.
So before you leave your room, you make your bed?
Before I leave the room, make my bed.
All right, very good. And then the coffee?
It's a discipline.
And then the coffee? You go and have the coffee after that?
Well, there's a few more actions I have to do before I go to the coffee.
Okay.
There's a lot more actions after the coffee, you know that.
Yeah, fair enough. Hey, Mal, good to see you as always, and go the Mighty Bears.
Go the Mighty Bears, all right.
Mal Meninga, our coach on the Big Bears podcast. I'll see you again soon.